Tell you what, that fist works well. I will now call the February 16, 2016 Blue Springs City Council meeting to order. If you would stand with me, observe a moment of silence, and I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I want to welcome you in attendance as well as those that might listen to the council meeting at a later time. The next item is the consent agenda. There are items that need to be pulled, otherwise I accept the motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Quibell?
Aye.
Councilman Levesey? Oh, I'm sorry, he's absent. Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Next, we have a presentation on a Khalil Accreditation Award. Chief McCoy.
I'd like to introduce Tim Basinger. He's the Regional Program Manager for Khalil. He'll be making the presentation this evening.
All right, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. As the Chief said, my name is Tim Basinger. I'm the Regional Program Manager for the North Central Region, which includes the state of Missouri. On behalf of the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, CALEA, the Commission Chair, Mr. Richard Myers, and Executive Director, Mr. Craig Hartley, Jr., I thank you for welcoming me to present the Accreditation Award to the Blue Springs Police Department. CALEA was created in 1979 when our founding organizations, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Sheriff's Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum recognized the need within the law enforcement community to develop professional standards to enhance the delivery of police services. CALEA is the only internationally recognized public safety accreditation body in existence serving the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Barbados. Since its inception, CALEA has accredited over 1,000 agencies under standards developed by many of the best public safety practitioners and leaders in our time. Gaining internationally accredited status is a distinction held by very few, as there are over 18,000 law enforcement agencies just in the United States alone. CALEA standards cover a wide range of administrative, operational, and logistical issues and serve as a modern management model that provides the framework for recognizing professional excellence within public safety. The goals of CALEA are to strengthen crime prevention and control capabilities, formalize essential management procedures, establish fair and non-discriminatory personnel practices, improve service delivery, solidify interagency cooperation and coordination, and increase community and staff confidence in the agency. Many agencies are reluctant to have outsiders review their work and their processes and to detail any areas for improvement. Chief McCoy believes otherwise and understands that involvement in the CALEA process minimizes the agency's exposure to liability, demonstrates accountability to the public, and guarantees professional management practices. Based on the goals and mission statements of CALEA, I can think of no better time to present this accreditation certificate than at a local ceremony here in Blue Springs, where all can be shared and recognize the hard work done by the police department to maintain their law enforcement accreditation. The certificate here is simply matted paper within a frame, but has a much broader symbolic meaning. The certificate clearly represents the agency's voluntary efforts to achieve accredited status, thereby demonstrating its willingness to embrace the necessary change to effectively address contemporary public safety concerns. It represents a commitment to do the right thing and to do it the right way. It represents adherence to professionalism. Lastly, this certificate represents an ongoing dedication to ensuring the agency's resources are appropriately developed, effectively deployed, and constantly managed, all in the name of a safer city for residents and visitors of Blue Springs. This past summer, 2 professional assessors visited the Blue Springs Police Department and reviewed the agency's applicable files, activities, functional impacts, and management strategies. These assessors determined that the Blue Springs Police Department was in compliance with all of the 484 standards for advanced accreditation. At the commission meeting held in Miami, Florida in November of 2015, Khalil commissioners reviewed the assessor's report for the Blue Springs Police Department, concurred with the findings, and unanimously agreed to grant reaccreditation to the agency. At this time, I would like to present the report to each of you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is the second accreditation award for the Blue Springs Police Department. I'm very pleased to present Chief Wayne McCoy of the Blue Springs Police Department with the Khalil Accreditation Certificate. If you'd come forward, please.
Very much.
Congratulations. I'd like to note that a great deal of credit for maintaining accreditation also goes to the accreditation manager, Ms. Terry Sandlin, here on the front row. Also, a special thanks goes out to all the members of the Blue Springs Police Department who also assisted with this ongoing effort. They live accreditation every day. Thank you.
Before you leave, are there any questions of council, Mr. Basinger?
Any questions?
Seeing none, I'm going to defer to our city administrator, but before I do that, a lot of people don't probably realize it. Now, I'm very observant, and I know on our police vehicles, we have the insignia that says Khalil. And so this means that we can keep them on the cars. We don't have to remove them.
Yeah, yes.
We've been recertified. So anyway, thank you so much for coming, and Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Basinger, thank you for being here tonight. Second time around through this process, and I remember very vividly when Chief McCoy brought this initiative to me, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's going to be a major undertaking, but it has made our department better. I'm extremely proud of the work of Chief McCoy and his team and all of the men and women in the Blue Springs Police Department who have worked to achieve this second recognition. And it can be extremely proud for the work that they do here in Blue Springs. And if your schedule allows you to stick around just momentarily, at the conclusion of this meeting tonight, we'd like to get a picture of you and Chief and the elected officials together, if you could do that for us.
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Basinger, for coming and making that presentation. Next, we have a necessary and exciting audit report by Kristen Hughes.
That's
Welcome,
going to be
Kristen.
tough to live up to. I'll do my best, though.
Did I put the pressure on for an audit report?
All right, well, thank you for letting me be here this evening to summarize the results of the 2015 audit. So here, the items we'll go through. We'll go through the required communications to the city officials, compliance, a summary of the compliance reporting, and then summarize just a couple key areas of the financial results in the CAFR. So here on the first slide, this goes through, as part of our audit, we have kind of a summary basically of the audit going through some of the topics we want to make sure we communicate to you all. The first being in the CAFR, which is the city's comprehensive annual financial report, we have our audit opinion in there, which was, again, for the 2015 year, an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the highest opinion that we can give at the conclusion of our audit, meaning the financials are presented in accordance with GAAP, no material deviations. Other items to note, this year, the city was required to implement Gatsby Statement Number 68, which was the new pension reporting standard. So this year, in your financial statements, not in any of your funds, but in your governmental activities or full accrual statements, basically for the city's participation in loggers, the statewide Missouri plan, they've gone through and estimated what the total pension liability is projected in the future, and that's reduced by basically the investments that the city or the assets that the city has already put towards that plan. So as a result of implementing that, so in the past, whether it was a liability or an asset, this had not historically been on the financials, but this year it was added. So the city, as of year end, actually has an $8.6 million net pension asset, meaning basically the investments held with the loggers currently exceed their projection for what your pension liability will be in the future. So that is something just to note different that you'll see in this year's CAFR compared to the prior year. The other items and these required communications, I apologize, in the three documents I believe you have, this is what's summarized in the report to the council that I'm summarizing here on this slide. It will go through and for the management judgments, as part of our audit, we go through and look for any areas where management, there's estimates or subjectivity, and make sure that the process used by management and how they're recording those transactions in the financials are reasonable and seem consistent with what we would expect to see. The next item here, audit adjustments, there were none. That's something positive to be able to report to you, meaning the trial balance we received from management at the start of our audit is the same as what was reflected in the final document. So that's always a positive. An audit should really be coming in and doing an audit, not doing bookkeeping. So that says a lot to the finance department, what we're receiving as far as their financials when we start our work. Uncorrected immaterial misstatements, you'll see those noted in there. Really, I think it's just one, adjustments in the investments to fair market value. So what we highlight there is they are adjustments we noted during the audit, but they were determined to be immaterial both by management and ourselves. So they're not recorded in the financials, they're just summarized in that document. What you'll also see in the report to the council is, overall, if there was any issues, significant issues, disagreements, anything like that came up during the audit, those would be noted and discussed with you, and there were none. Management's very great to work with as far as responding to our requests and moving the audit in a timely manner, so no issues there. Future accounting pronouncements, those are summarized, footnote 12 to the report. The one that I would note, kind of consistent with what I just mentioned in the pension standard, the Gatsby has approved OPEB, basically for post-retirement health benefits offered to retirees, and it's a few years out, but that will be implemented by the city as well, where a liability will be recorded on the actual financials for expected future costs as it relates to that. The next item here, the small spiral, the compliance report that you received, this summarizes our results there. So in that document, you'll see a couple opinions that we give. The first one defines what are material weaknesses and significant deficiencies in internal control over financial reporting, and there were none in the current year. So you'll really just see the standard language in that opinion, again, defining them and then noting that there were none. As far as the single audit, similarly, there's an opinion that goes through and defines what that would be as it relates to the city's controls in place over how your grant expenditures are handled. And so again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over the grant funding. Just so you know, I think the city had approximately $2.5 million in federal expenditures this year. So the major program, which means the grant that we tested this year, that one alone, which was the Woods Chapel construction project, in testing that grant, that was approximately 86% of the city's total expenditures for the year. And in going through that grant, no instances of noncompliance noted, so no issues, as we were going through and testing how the grant had been spent in accordance with what was defined in the agreement. Here's a summary. So in the CAFR, the large financials, just a couple things, I guess, before I jump into the numbers. The financial statements, it's obviously a large document. A couple items I would note in here as you're going through this. I would point you to management's discussion and analysis, which is before the financials. That's a good year. That's a good comparison of 2015 as it compares to 2014. So that's where management has gone through and analyzed basically fluctuations in your major funds or citywide, any changes year over year. And then behind the basic financials and the footnotes, there's the statistical section, and that's more of a long-term perspective, really a 10-year history of some major themes of revenue sources, debt, etc. So that's always a good area to look to as well for kind of a long-term history of some of those areas in the financials. Here on this slide, though, focusing on your general fund, which is the city's operating fund, you'll see, I think, an 8-year history of the revenue sources. So really, when looking at 2015 revenue in the general fund compared to the prior year, it's very consistent. Basically, no significant changes in the sources of revenue coming in through the general fund. Expenditures here by function in the general fund. When comparing 2015 to 14, expenditures increased approximately $1 million or 5%, and most of that is in the public safety function, obviously with some of the expansions that have been done in that department. So that's where you'll see increased expenditures in the current year. The next slide takes a look at the general fund's fund balance. So basically the equity in the general fund and the breakout of where that's at September 30th at year end. So the non-spendable category, that represents the portion of equity that things like prepaids or advances to other funds that don't necessarily really turn into a spendable asset for the fund. The committed is the largest category in the general fund. So these would be things that have been approved by council. So there's about $7.5 million in that category, and that's really, for the most part, the budget stabilization reserve and the emergency reserves that have been set up for the general fund. And then the remaining category assigned, for the most part, those are encumbrances towards future projects that have been already approved by management. And then the remaining category, unassigned fund balance, at year end for the general fund, that was approximately $850,000 of unassigned fund balance for the general fund. This item you'll see, this is discussed in the footnotes and then the statistical, but just, one of the items that you take a look at is the legal debt margin for the city, so property tax assessed value compared to current outstanding debt. So you'll see the legal debt margin as of year end is $124 million. On this slide, you'll see the operating results for the enterprise funds, which are your business type funds, such as the water, sewer, and the new field house fund this year. So operating results, if you look at revenue, compared to prior year, it's pretty consistent. No significant changes there. Operating expenses did increase in the current year. You'll also see here compared net income, excluding depreciation. We back that out just because that's really a non-cash expenditure, so you can kind of get a perspective of what net income is excluding that amount. And then the final category, just with the cash flow statements, cash flows that are generated from operations in these funds for the last 3 years. So that's what I was going to go through in the CAFR. Any questions for me as it relates to the CAFR, the documents you've received, or the audits?
Are there any questions from council? I'm looking at Councilman Culpepper because this is her professional expertise.
Your Honor, I could just say that having been through this numerous times myself in my working career, kudos to the accounting department. It's wonderful to get such good, clean reports.
Thank you. No questions? I guess not. You did a great job explaining it to us.
Well, if you want to call it fun, that would be great, but thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have, did you want to make some comments, Mr. Johnson? Well, certainly we applaud and compliment our finance department, because I think with that report, we will be recognized for the umpteenth time, and I can't even think of the number of this award that we get every year. What do you call that, Mr.
GFOA.
Yeah, GFOA. I think we've probably gotten it about 50 times. somewhere in that neighborhood, whenever they started it.
I wasn't around then.
Yeah. We've been getting it a long time, which means that you have a long-standing tradition of representing the city well from a financial standpoint, being responsible, because I think accountability is important. And so, thank you. That brings us to a public hearing. We have a public hearing on the revision to the 2015 Unified Development Code.
Mayor, the city has the following exhibit to enter into the record. City Council information form with attachments, Planning Commission staff memorandum dated February 8, 2016, from Jim Hawley with attachments, corrected public notice, application for text amendment, affidavit of publication of the Blue Springs Examiner on January 23, 2016, and Unified Development Code by reference, as well as the proposed ordinance. This is all we have to offer for the record.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
All right, thank you, Your Honor, and members of the council. Before you this evening is a request to make a handful of changes, 9 specifically identified amendments that are noted in the staff memorandum to the Unified Development Code. As you know, when we first brought this forward back in August of last year, the UDC was made effective the 1st of October. And at the time when we presented this to you back in August, we did note that at least during this first year, we'll be coming forward possibly every 90 to 180 days with some tweaks, adjustments as we actually start utilizing the UDC and trying out different pieces. So again, it's kind of that trial and error a little bit on some of these different items. And as we note here, again, the changes do not represent significant modifications to UDC, but hopefully make the regulatory language clearer and hopefully as well in some cases less onerous on development. So the idea is we're not looking at actually tightening or increasing any kind of regulatory language, but actually doing the opposite and actually finding areas that are somewhat problematic perhaps for proposed developments that we're trying to then kind of scale back as we actually start utilizing the UDC. I won't go into each individual one unless there are questions on those. I will note that there was just one minor, I guess a typo change recommended by the Planning Commission with regards to some of our categories for parking as related to some of the landscaping standards. We kind of had a gap in terms of our different thresholds, so we just modified that as a typo. Other than that, everything is as submitted. This did go before the Development Advisory Commission last month and then proceeded to the Planning Commission. And it's before you this evening with both of those commissions recommending unanimously approval with the language as stated for those 9 amendments. So again, I'll stand for any questions if there are any other specific issues.
Are there any questions of Mr. Allen from the council? Seeing none, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to speak in support of? In support of? In opposition to? Opposition to? We'll close this public hearing. We'll have the introduction and reading of Bill 4412.
I introduce it, Your Honor.
Okay.
First reading of Bill Number 4412, an ordinance amending various sections of Chapters 402, 403, 405, and 407 of the City of Blue Springs Unified Development Code.
Move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Same sign.
Second reading of Bill Number 4412, an ordinance amending various sections of Chapters 402, 403, 405, and 407 of the City of Blue Springs Unified Development Code.
Is there a motion?
I'm sorry. Move the bill be approved on its second reading and assigned the appropriate ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper?
Aye.
Councilman Quavel?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously, given ordinance number 4585.
That brings us to mayoral announcements. The only announcement that I have is this Thursday, at 11:30 at the Adams Point Conference Center is my 8th State of the City address. So we encourage those that are in attendance and those that might listen to the council meeting at a later time that they can check with the chamber for tickets. This is a Blue Springs Chamber of Commerce luncheon. So we look forward to the presentation on the 8th. And given the state of the city on accomplishments in 2015 and as we look forward to 2016 objectives. That brings us to thoughts to ponder. The first one was given to me by Councilman Jeff Quayle. Again, it's been Black History Month. His comes from Martin Luther King Jr. And I quote, "Life's most urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" End quote. And the second one is mine, and it comes from Rosa Parks. And I quote, "You must never be fearful about what you're doing when it's right." End quote. That concludes my mayoral announcements. We do have one visitor's appearance form from a Mr. Charles, is it Driscoll? Driscoll. Okay, senior, would you like to come up? I have your name, but I don't have any address or anything, so did you want to come up to the microphone and talk to us and tell us what you want to tell us? And also, once you come up, if you would give us your address so we can have a record. Do you have it?
902 Southeast Kings Cross Road.
Okay, say that again.
902 Southeast Kings Cross Road. Been in Blue Springs since 1970. I know some of the people up here. The mayor, I had breakfast with him one day. This gentleman over here, a policeman, he knows me. The thing I came for was I needed to know some information about the zoning commission, and I came in this building a couple of weeks ago, and I parked over on the side over here because there is no handicap parking in the front of this building. True, all the slots are full that are in front of this building. They didn't park there illegal because there's no handicap here. Now, I understand that they say there's down the block and around the corner, there's handicap. Now, I'm going to get a scooter. In fact, I'm going to pick it up any day. And you're going to put me from this place around the block around here, or any other person that's in there. I think there is a handicapped person over here that came in or something.
Yeah, that's my wife.
That's your wife?
Yes.
I didn't know that, and I'm glad you brought that up to me. In a snowy day that I have to come to the city council meeting, or just because I want to come, I can't come because you're going to put me out over here on this side, and I have to come out into the street, come around to the front of this building, and I happened to notice when I was walking up here, I don't think there's a spot anywhere in the front of this building that a handicap can get in. I don't think there's a ramp anywhere. To my knowledge, when I looked across there, I did not see one single ramp. I may be wrong on that. However, I am not wrong on handicap parking. There are like 6 or 8 slots here in front of the building. This morning when I came by, they were the last time I came, they were occupied by city workers, a repair person, and just general parking there, because there's no handicap there. If you don't want to put handicap in this nice new building, that's fine. But if you want to have part of the whole community, you should have at least half of these slots out here as handicapped. They're not. And I don't know whether anybody else has looked at, I didn't see a ramp that the mayor's wife can get in from the front.
Okay, I appreciate you coming and bringing that to us, Mr. Johnson. With you, certainly it sounds like there is an issue maybe that we didn't think of. So anyway, we can certainly vet that and figure it out. But I want to defer to Mr. Johnson and staff to kind of figure that out.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for coming tonight, sir. Appreciate it.
I've got something else after you get through.
Oh, I can wait.
Well, do you want to cover that first?
I mean, is the next issue separate from this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, why don't we go ahead and address this one?
When this facility was designed, and you're correct, I think you kept referring to a parking in that direction, which would be the parking lot which is at 12th and Main.
Right, that's where the handicap parking is.
So there are several handicap parking stalls there. Right across the street, there is another parking lot that was built as part of this complex, and there are at least 4 handicap spots there. There may be more than that. I'll defer to staff. There are ramps that lead you, and it's 50 paces from the front of this door to those handicap spots. Ramps going out into 11th Street, and then ramps going into the parking lot.
Into the street?
Into the street, yes, sir.
That's a good place for a handicapped person to be.
I took mental notes of what you commented, sir, and we're still we're debugging this facility, and I'm certain we will spend a great amount of time reevaluating some of the existing parking spots that are more adjacent to this. But we do have handicap spots that were taken in and are designed.
Yeah, I walked from over there, and let me tell you, if you have as many doctors as I have, you wouldn't want to walk from over there, I assure you.
I understand,
because I saw 2 today.
Okay. Well,
on mobility, no less.
You may not have been aware of the ones immediately across the street, and they are closer. And perhaps if you have the opportunity, you
I
can
saw
look at those.
across the street, do not enter. If you're talking about the street out here in front, in that parking lot.
I'm talking right across the street.
You're talking about on the side over here?
There's a street, it's 11th Street. As soon as you walk out of this building.
Is it the one-way?
There is a one-way street, but that's on the north side of this building, not the east side.
Where the big wide concrete walkway is?
If you will hang around for a while after this meeting tonight, if you have the time, some of our staff here can show you where those spots are, and we can evaluate whether or not those will work for you.
No, they won't.
Okay.
It's not right. I don't care who you look at and what you do. When there's slots out here in front of this building available to handicapped, there should be at least 3.
Your Honor, as I indicated,
I'll let it go.
We will reevaluate, and we will look at what options may be available that are in addition to those spaces that have already been allocated.
Well, they haven't been allocated to anything because they don't have parking or anything there. Okay, I'm done with that one.
Yeah, Mr. Driscoll, let us take a look at it.
All right, sir, I appreciate that.
What we might do is there are some along 11th Street, those parking places right there along there that's not handicapped. We might take a look at some of those and kind of see if we can make some of those handicap accessible. Anyway, we would take a look at it and see what we can try to do to figure it out.
Well, before you make them handicapped, you're going to need to repair them because they're all cracked going down the side. Those big old wide ones, they have cracked and are leaning over into the dirt.
Okay, we will check that out.
Okay.
Yes.
You ready for my next one?
I'm ready for your next one. Go for it.
All right. I have trash collector just like everybody else here has. Okay, the company I have that does mine, and I believe it's ordinance in Blue Springs that you leave the trash compactor or the trash can 4 feet from your house. They come and pick it up and return it to within 4 feet of the house. Am I correct?
Yes, Scott?
Actually, it's 5 feet.
5 feet? Okay, I missed a foot.
The resident, the tenant, whoever needs to place the trash receptacle within 5 feet of the house side. We do not permit curbside placement of trash receptacles. However, there's nothing that states that the trash collection company has to return it within 5 feet. It's simply when it's full.
I thought there was.
No, that's a good question. I know we've gotten that question before as well, Your Honor.
Well,
and it's only when it's full and it's first deposited outside, it needs to be placed within 5 feet. But when it's empty and returned, there is no specific standard for that.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. As a gentleman from the city came out and he followed the streets, and I'm talking about Manor South and Autumn Chase. He went down those streets. AAA, they put nothing back. They don't put it 2 feet from the house. They don't put it 5 feet from the house. They don't put it 10. They drop it right on the curb. And it just happened that the gentleman from Blue Springs who went down and drove around the family, there was one of AAA's laying out in the middle of the street. True, there was some wind that day, but had it been placed anywhere near the house, I doubt very seriously it would have got out there. My company returns, and I've had them for buku years because I lived over on Alice Court for 35. They put my trash container right back up next to the house. I read in a Blue Springs paper that the city was looking at trash companies. I don't know whether this is for future expansion of the city and whether they can supply them, or whether or not it's how they leave their product when they go on. I went to the zoning commission. That was the reason I came to this building the first time. I went to the zoning commission over here, and I asked, a gentleman came upstairs, since I was unable to go downstairs, and I asked the gentleman about zoning and whether or not the trash cans are returned up by the homes. And he stated to me, they're supposed to be. Said the ordinance reads that they will be returned within 4 feet of the house, just like you leave them in the morning. That's what he stated to me. Okay, I said, well, they're not doing that. He said, well, if they don't do it, we can write them a citation or a warning or something, he says, but we can't do anything about it, because if you go to them and you give them a warning or a citation or slip or whatever, they have 2 weeks to come into compliance with putting those trash cans back up by the house. 2 weeks. He says, with a laugh, how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to enforce it if they have 2 weeks to put it back up by your house? With a laugh again, he says, you're not. If we go over to them, they just laugh at us. That don't seem to be my way of doing business.
Well, Mr. Druska, obviously the person you talked to was mistaken. As the person that's in charge of that department just stated, we do not have an ordinance that says that they have to return it back to the position. It's only that the homeowner will leave it within 5 feet. Now, council, that's something we need to look at. Staff, we need to vet that, and maybe at some point, if we require the homeowner to put it within 5 feet, the trash companies don't need to be lazy and leave it by the street. Maybe they do need to return it, but before we can enforce that, we would need to change the ordinance to reflect that. So anyway, that's something we will take under advisement, and that's something we will vet.
Well,
and make a determination whether we need to change the ordinance.
And I have one more concern on that same subject.
Okay.
Okay, if the gentleman from Codes Enforcement told me that it was unenforceable, he came up from downstairs over to Code Enforcement.
Well, obviously he was mistaken. So that's the point I made.
He could be.
Because his boss is sitting right there.
But we need to change that ordinance to where, and my company does it, they bring it back up there, and I've had the same company for 30-something years. Same company.
Yeah, and then certainly, as I indicated, we will take that under advisement, we will vet it and make a determination, if we do want to submit change to that ordinance to require that.
Thank you for listening to me.
You bet.
I appreciate it.
And certainly,
I'll have breakfast with you next President's Day.
And we welcome you to come back anytime. You made some good points. You gave us something to think about and something for us to take a look at. So
I have one other question. I looked around the room here tonight, and there's only one black person in this room, and that's the mayor.
Oh, my wife is too.
Where's your wife?
In a wheelchair.
Oh, I couldn't see over there. I apologize. But I was looking for...
Got Mr. Watson back there. We have one of our staff members right here.
I couldn't see him in the thing. I couldn't see him in the little booth. But I was just wondering what the percentage of black police officers is in the city of Blue Springs.
Chief,
because I would think with as much trouble as everybody else is having, we should get ahead of it.
We certainly have African American, we have women, we have some diversity in our police department.
We're about 9%, and just recently, our most recent hire, we had one African American male, one Hispanic male, and one female. So that was our last hiring group.
Very good. I know him for quite a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I don't have another visitor's appearance form from anyone. We will have, and again, with Mr. Basinger, we're going to go down and take a picture in between going into executive session. But right now, I'm going to defer to our city attorney for a motion that you can so move, Council.
Thank you. The appropriate motion at this time would be that the council go into closed session pursuant to section 610.021, subparagraph 1, revised statutes of Missouri, for the purpose of having confidential and privileged communications between a governmental body or its representatives and its attorney relating to legal action, causes of action, or litigation involving this body and legal advice. That any votes, minutes, documents, and other records discussed or taken during the closed session remain closed, and that this body stand adjourned at the completion of such session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Carter?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Culpepper?
Aye.
Councilman Quibell?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
We're going to take about a 5-minute break to allow us to come down and take pictures, and we're going to ask that our audience be excused because we're not going to go to the executive conference room for our executive session. We're going to stay right here because we might need to use the audio visual equipment. So we're going to stand in recess for about 2 or 3, 4 or 5 minutes, however long it takes to come down here and take a good photo, and allow our visitors to be excused.